The estate attorney had barely unclasped the heavy brass seal on my late father's will when my sister-in-law stood up with a triumphant, smug grin. "There is no need to waste everyone's afternoon dragging out legal formalities," she announced loudly to the crowded conference room. "My husband is the eldest son and primary male heir, so the entire $14 million estate naturally belongs to him." My older brother leaned back in his leather chair with a satisfied smirk, while several opportunistic relatives nodded in immediate agreement. I remained perfectly silent in my formal dress uniform. The senior attorney slowly removed his reading glasses, looked at me, looked back at my sister-in-law, and suddenly burst into loud, genuine laughter. It was not a polite chuckle or a nervous cough. He laughed so hard that his face turned bright red, and he had to wipe tears from his eyes. My sister-in-law's confident smile evaporated on the spot. She had just revealed an ancient assumption that proved she understood absolutely nothing about the man who built the fortune. "My name is Major Lauren Davis. I am 30 years old and have served as an aerospace logistics officer in the United States Air Force for over a decade. Military service taught me early on that rank is completely meaningless without personal responsibility, and that genuine respect is earned through quiet sacrifice, not unearned titles or social entitlement. Those core principles guided my entire life long before my father was laid to rest with full civilian honors. Nothing in my military career, however, prepared me for the shameless greed that erupted inside my father's legal counsel's office barely an hour after the graveside service had concluded. My father, Harold Davis, was a self-made industrial pioneer who spent 45 years building a precision engineering enterprise from an empty garage into a regional manufacturing powerhouse. Through relentless work ethic, brilliant innovation, and conservative financial discipline, he accumulated an estate valued at $14 million, yet he lived in the same modest brick house and measured wealth solely through human character, honesty, and quiet integrity. During his final 4 years of failing health, whenever my military leave permitted, I flew across the country to sit beside him in sterile chemotherapy waiting rooms, organize his complex medication schedules, review quarterly commercial tax filings, and maintain the family property. My older brother Bradley, on the other hand, lived barely 20 miles away in an affluent gated community, but rarely bothered to visit our father. He only appeared at the family home when he needed an interest-free bridge loan to rescue his failed luxury vehicle leasing venture, cover his lavish country club dues, or demand advances on his expected inheritance. After the funeral, 18 relatives gathered in the oak-paneled boardroom of my father's lifelong estate attorney, Thomas Pendleton. The air was thick with unspoken greed and anticipation. Bradley sat prominently at the head of the conference table beside his wife Chloe, who wore an expensive designer dress and treated the entire proceeding as a minor formality before claiming her social crown. Their absolute confidence in taking over the company was palpable, yet it only highlighted how disconnected they were from my father's true life. Mr. Pendleton cleared his throat and opened the primary leather dossier on the polished mahogany table. "Thank you all for gathering today to honor the final legal directives of Harold Davis," he began in a measured, solemn tone. But before he could read a single clause of the document, Chloe stood up, smoothed her designer dress, and interrupted with theatrical confidence. She declared that Bradley was the firstborn son, claiming that tradition and common sense dictated the entire precision engineering business, commercial real estate holdings, and liquid bank reserves be signed over to him immediately. Several opportunistic aunts and cousins murmured in agreement, whispering that the eldest son was the rightful family patriarch. Mr. Pendleton set his fountain pen down, took off his spectacles, and stared at Chloe in utter disbelief before erupting into the thunderous laughter that echoed off the high ceiling. The entire room went dead silent as relatives exchanged bewildered glances, while Chloe's face flushed bright crimson with embarrassment. "I apologize for the unprofessional reaction," Mr. Pendleton said as he composed himself and dried his eyes. "But Mrs. Davis has just demonstrated a complete misunderstanding of both your late father's core intentions and the laws governing modern estate planning." Chloe crossed her arms defensively, demanding to know how family tradition could be cast aside when Bradley was the rightful firstborn heir. Mr. Pendleton smiled patiently, leaned forward across the table, and explained that archaic family traditions hold zero legal standing against a properly executed irrevocable master trust. He opened a thick blue folder and distributed official copies to every family member present. 4 years ago, Harold Davis transferred 100% of his company shares, commercial properties, and investment portfolios into an ironclad family asset trust. He explicitly structured the trust to ensure that not a single penny would ever be inherited based on birth order or patriarchal assumptions. This legal mechanism ensured that the business would remain protected under capable hands rather than squandered. Mr. Pendleton explained that my father firmly believed true leadership is earned through demonstrated integrity, personal discipline, and unwavering loyalty. He withdrew a series of handwritten legal logs maintained by my father over his final 3 years of life. The records were meticulous, factual, and completely undeniable. One ledger page recorded 42 separate hospital visits and specialist consultations, with every single entry accompanied by the name Lauren. Another page detailed emergency property maintenance, supplier renegotiations, and payroll audits during economic downturns, all managed and resolved by Lauren. Then Mr. Pendleton turned the page to reveal another ledger listing 7 separate communications from Bradley over the exact same 3-year period, each one documenting a demand for financial handouts, emergency cash advances, or premature inquiries regarding the distribution of the estate. Bradley's smug posture collapsed, his eyes dropping to the mahogany table as his face drained of all color. Chloe stepped forward in a desperate fury, shouting that handwritten journals and hospital logs could not invalidate Bradley's blood right as the eldest male descendant. Mr. Pendleton looked up with cold professional authority, stating that Harold Davis had anticipated this exact dispute from the very beginning. He reached into the lower drawer of his desk and produced a heavy cream-colored envelope sealed with dark navy wax, bearing my father's unmistakable handwriting across the front. "To my children, read together at the end." Mr. Pendleton broke the wax seal, unfolded the crisp parchment, and read my father's final words aloud to the silent room. My father wrote that leadership in the Davis family was never a birthright to be claimed through arrogance, but a solemn duty earned by the child who showed up when nobody was watching. He praised my quiet dedication, noting that I never once asked about his fortune, but gave my time and care unconditionally. The letter continued with devastating honesty regarding Bradley's conduct. My father wrote that while he loved his son, he could not in good conscience entrust 45 years of honest manufacturing labor and the livelihoods of 200 factory workers to a man who viewed family solely through the lens of financial entitlement and selfish greed. The letter formally designated Major Lauren Davis as the sole fiduciary trustee and principal beneficiary of the Davis Master Trust, granting me exclusive operational ownership of the manufacturing enterprise, the commercial real estate, and the family investment portfolio. Bradley was allocated a modest, non-assignable discretionary monthly allowance that was strictly contingent upon my approval as sole trustee, with an ironclad, no-contest clause stipulating that any legal challenge would permanently terminate his stipend and forfeit all remaining family benefits. It was a masterclass in protective estate planning. The conference room remained frozen in absolute silence as the undeniable reality of my father's judgment settled over every person present. Chloe opened her mouth to scream in outrage, but the crushing weight of the legal documentation left her completely voiceless and trembling with defeated fury. Bradley sat paralyzed, staring down at the polished table with tears of humiliation in his eyes, realizing that his years of neglect and shallow entitlement had permanently cost him the empire he assumed was guaranteed. I stood up calmly in my service dress uniform, adjusted my collar, and looked across the table at my brother and his wife. I told them that my father's legacy would be protected with the exact discipline, integrity, and honor he practiced throughout his life, and that true wealth is never inherited through arrogance, but built through selfless dedication. As we walked out of the law firm into the crisp afternoon air, I looked back at the city skyline, knowing that my father's true gift was not the millions in accounts, but the timeless values he instilled within me. Entitlement demands what it never earned, but honor protects what it was given. I promised myself that every decision I made, as head of the company, would honor his memory, reward the hardworking employees who built it, and stand as an enduring testament to the power of quiet, steadfast character over loud ambition. True and lasting respect will always belong to those who serve with humility.